Welcome to the Semper AI Digest. I'm Tomas, your AI research lead, always scanning the horizon for what's next.
And I'm Aiva. Together, we keep you sharp, informed, and ahead of the curve.
Let's get into it. All right, so OpenAI just dropped GPT 5.6, and one AI startup saw their token throughput jump by 60% overnight. We're talking about model launches that are literally causing developers to switch providers in real time. That's where we're starting today on Semper AI Digest.
Wait, 60%? That's not incremental optimization. That's a fundamental shift in what's economically viable to build.
Right? And we're also going to talk about some cryptic video format news that's got people speculating. I'm Thomas.
And I'm Aiva. It's Monday, July 13th, 2026. And honestly, that GPT 5.6 story is wild because...
Okay, let me set this up properly. So Stefan Petre, he's the founder of PSPDFKit, posted about this on X. He's talking about Xi, which is an AI company, and he says their tokens per second improved by 60% with the GPT 5.6 launch. And then he adds this kicker. Every launch is shifting a lot of devs from one provider to another. Crazy.
So first, let's make sure we're all on the same page here. When we talk about tokens per second, we're talking about throughput, how fast the model can generate responses. And a 60% improvement is enormous.
It's massive. Like, think about it this way. If you're running a chatbot service or you're doing document processing at scale or anything that involves API calls to a language model, your costs are determined by two things: how much you pay per token and how fast you can process those tokens. If you suddenly get 60% more throughput, that's not just about speed.
Right, because if you can process requests faster, you need fewer concurrent connections. You can serve more users with the same infrastructure, your queue times drop.
Your whole cost structure changes. Like, let's say you were processing 1,000 documents an hour. Now you can do 1,600 with the same setup, or you can handle the same 1,000 but with way less compute overhead on your end.
And this is where it gets really interesting from a competitive dynamics perspective, because Stefan's point is that these launches are causing developers to actively switch providers, not gradually, not after careful evaluation, like immediately.
Yeah, and I think there's something really important happening here that maybe people outside the AI development world don't fully appreciate. The market has become incredibly dynamic. Like 2 or 3 years ago, if you built on OpenAI, you were pretty much locked in. The switching costs were high, the alternatives weren't as good, and you'd structured your whole product around GPT 3.5 or GPT-4.
But now we're in this era where you've got OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, X with Grok, Meta with Llama, Mistral, and they're all competitive. They're all actually viable for production workloads.
Right, and so what happens is OpenAI drops GPT 5.6, and suddenly they've got a performance edge. Maybe it's throughput, maybe it's quality on certain tasks, maybe it's both. And developers who were using Claude or Gemini or whatever, they're running their evals, they're seeing these improvements, and they're like, okay, we need to switch.
How difficult is that switch, though? Because I think that's the key question. Like, are we talking about changing a few lines of code, or are we talking about rewriting your whole prompt engineering strategy?
It really depends on how you've architected things. If you've been smart about it and you've used abstraction layers, like if you're using something like LangChain or Llama Index, or if you've just built your own wrapper around the API calls, then switching can be relatively painless. You're basically changing an endpoint and maybe adjusting some parameters.
But if you've optimized heavily for a specific model's quirks?
Oh, then you're in trouble. Yeah, like if you've got all these custom prompts that are tailored to how Claude thinks versus how GPT thinks, or if you've built specific workflows around context window sizes or function calling implementations, then switching is a nightmare.
And I think this is creating interesting pressure on companies to build more model-agnostic systems. Like, you almost have to assume now that you might switch providers in 6 months.
Yes, it's like the best practice has become to not over-optimize for any single model because the landscape is shifting so fast, which is kind of wild if you think about it, because normally in software, you want to optimize deeply for your platform.
But here, the platforms are leapfrogging each other every few months.
Exactly. And that 60% improvement, let's dig into what that might actually mean technically, because tokens per second can be influenced by a bunch of different factors.
Okay, so what are we thinking? Infrastructure improvements? Like, did OpenAI just spin up better hardware?
That's possible, but I think it's more likely a combination of things. First, there could be model architecture improvements, like maybe GPT 5.6 has optimizations that make inference faster, more efficient attention mechanisms, better quantization, whatever.
Or it could be that they've improved their serving infrastructure, better batching, improved scheduling, more efficient use of their GPU clusters.
Right, and honestly, it's probably both. But here's what's really fascinating to me, the economic implications. Because if OpenAI can serve tokens 60% faster, that means their cost per token probably went down significantly.
So theoretically, they could pass those savings on to developers.
Theoretically, but we haven't seen a price drop announced with GPT 5.6, have we?
Not that I've seen. So they're either pocketing the difference, which, they're a business.
Or they're using it to offer better service levels at the same price point, which is still a competitive advantage.
And I think that's where the developer switching comes in. Like if I'm paying the same amount but getting significantly better performance, that's a no-brainer.
Absolutely. And you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of the cloud wars in the late 2000s and early 2010s, like when AWS and Azure and Google Cloud were all competing on price and performance. And you'd see these constant improvements where one provider would drop prices or improve performance and everyone else would have to respond.
Oh, that's a good parallel, because we're seeing the same dynamics here. Anthropic's going to have to respond to this, right? Google's going to have to respond?
They have to. And the thing is, this is amazing for developers and ultimately for consumers because competition drives innovation, but it's also creating this chaotic environment where nothing is stable.
Which makes it really hard to plan long-term as a company building on these models.
Yeah, imagine you're a startup and you've built your whole product roadmap around the assumption that you're going to have certain cost structures and performance characteristics, and then every 3 months the landscape completely shifts.
You have to be incredibly agile.
You have to, and I think we're going to see some companies fail because they can't adapt fast enough. Like if you've optimized deeply for one model and then that model becomes uncompetitive and you can't switch quickly enough, you're going to lose to competitors who can.
So the meta skill here is almost not just being good at AI engineering, but being good at portable AI engineering.
Exactly. Being able to build systems that can adapt as the underlying models change. And honestly, that's probably good discipline anyway, but it's being forced by the market dynamics.
Do we know anything else about GPT 5.6 specifically, like beyond the throughput improvements?
Not from this particular post. Stefan was focused on the performance aspect from Zai's perspective, but presumably there are quality improvements too. OpenAI doesn't usually release a new version without some capability enhancements.
Right, and it's interesting that we're at 5.6 now. Like, we've had a lot of iterations in the GPT-5 series.
Yeah, and I think that reflects OpenAI's strategy of continuous improvement rather than big bang releases. Like instead of waiting for GPT-6, they're constantly refining and releasing point updates.
Which, again, is great for the ecosystem, but it does create that instability we were talking about.
It does. And I think the big question looking forward is, does this pace continue? Like, can we sustain this level of improvement and competition indefinitely, or are we going to hit some kind of plateau?
My gut says we're going to see the pace slow down eventually, just because we're going to hit physical limits or data limits or both, but I don't think we're there yet.
No, definitely not yet. And in the meantime, we're living through this incredible period where every few months something fundamentally shifts, which is exhausting, but also kind of exhilarating if you're in this space.
All right, so let me transition us to the next story, which is a bit more mysterious.
Oh yeah, the cryptic video format thing.
So Theo, who's a well-known developer and content creator, posted something very brief on X, just 2 words, video format, with a colon, like he's about to explain something, but then nothing.
Yeah, and this has generated a lot of speculation. But here's the thing, we don't actually know what he's referring to.
Right, which is frustrating. So let's talk about what it could be, but with the caveat that we're speculating here.
Absolutely. So one possibility is that this is related to a new video format announcement from one of the major players. Like maybe OpenAI is about to announce native video understanding in the API, or maybe Google is doing something with Gemini and video processing.
That would make sense given the timing. We know video understanding has been a huge focus area. Like Gemini has had some video capabilities, Claude has been working on it, and OpenAI has obviously had Sora for video generation, but understanding is a different beast.
Right. So if someone is about to announce a breakthrough in video understanding, like the ability to process long-form video efficiently, or to extract structured data from video content, or to do real-time video analysis, that would be a big deal.
It would. And the applications are kind of obvious, right? Like content moderation, video search, accessibility features, security and surveillance, entertainment.
Sports analytics is a huge one. Imagine being able to automatically analyze every play in a football game and generate insights.
Or education, being able to automatically create transcripts and summaries and quiz questions from lecture videos.
Yeah, there's massive potential there. But the challenge has always been that video is really compute intensive. Like a 1-minute video at decent resolution is a huge amount of data compared to text or even images.
So if someone has figured out how to do video understanding efficiently enough to make it practical at scale, that's a significant technical achievement.
It is. Now, another possibility is that this is about video generation formats. Like maybe there's a new standard or format for AI-generated video that's more efficient or higher quality.
That's possible. Sora and other video generation models have been producing impressive results, but there are still issues with consistency, coherence over time, and handling complex scenes.
Right. And maybe someone's developed a new approach or a new format that addresses some of those issues. Like maybe it's a format that allows for better temporal consistency, or that's more editable after generation.
Or maybe it's something about compression. Like if you can generate video in a format that's already optimized for streaming or storage, that could be valuable.
That's true. And honestly, given how little information we have, it could be any of these things or something completely different.
Which brings me to an important point. This is why we need more context. Like a 2-word post with no follow-up isn't really actionable information.
Yeah, and this is a good example of something where we can speculate about the possibilities, but we should be clear that we're speculating. We don't actually know what Theo is referring to.
Right. Has he posted any follow-up since then?
Not that I've seen. So either he's teasing something that's about to be announced, or he posted accidentally and didn't finish the thought, or it's some kind of inside reference that makes sense in context, but we're missing that context.
And this is the downside of the very fast-paced, social media-driven news cycle. Sometimes you get these fragments that generate a lot of discussion but don't actually contain much information.
Yeah, although, to be fair, sometimes these cryptic posts are intentional teasers, and then something big gets announced a day or two later.
That's true. So we'll keep an eye on it and see if there's a follow-up. But for now, all we can really say is that someone is possibly hinting at something related to video formats in the AI space.
Which could be exciting. Video is definitely one of the next frontiers. We've made huge progress on text and images, and now video is the next challenge.
And audio too. Like real-time audio understanding and generation is getting really good.
Oh, absolutely. Have you played with any of the recent conversational AI demos? Like where you can have a natural back-and-forth conversation with an AI?
I have, and it's honestly pretty impressive. The latency is getting low enough that it feels almost natural. There's still occasional weirdness, but we're getting close to passing the Turing test in voice conversations.
We really are. And I think once we have that same level of quality with video, like real-time video understanding, where an AI can watch what you're doing and provide contextual help or commentary, that's when things get really interesting.
Although also potentially creepy, depending on the application.
Oh, for sure. The privacy implications of pervasive video understanding are significant.
Yeah, like if every camera everywhere can be feeding into an AI that's analyzing everything in real time, that's a lot.
It is. And I think we're going to have some serious conversations as a society about where we draw the lines on that. Like what's acceptable in public spaces versus private spaces, what kind of consent is required, how the data is stored and used.
Those are conversations that needed to happen yesterday, honestly. The technology is already here or very close, and the regulatory frameworks are way behind.
They are. Although I will say we're seeing more awareness of these issues now than we did a few years ago. Like there's more public discussion about AI ethics and safety.
That's true, but discussion doesn't always lead to action, and the pace of technological development is so fast that by the time regulations are in place, the technology has already moved on.
Yeah, it's a real challenge, and I don't have a good answer for how to solve that, other than to say that people working in AI need to be thinking about these implications proactively, not waiting for regulations to force them to.
Agreed. And users need to be informed and vigilant about how their data is being used.
Absolutely. Okay, so circling back to the video format thing, I think the key takeaway is that video is clearly a hot area right now. Whether or not Theo's post is hinting at something specific, we know that all the major players are investing heavily in video capabilities.
Right. And when we do get more clarity on what he was referring to, we'll definitely cover it in depth.
For sure. All right, so let me take a step back and talk about the bigger picture for a minute, because I think these two stories, even though they're very different in terms of how much information we have, they both point to the same underlying trend.
Which is?
Which is that we're in this incredibly dynamic, fast-moving phase of AI development where things are changing month to month, and anyone who's building in this space has to be prepared to adapt constantly.
That's a good synthesis.
Like the GPT 5.6 story shows us that performance and capabilities are improving rapidly, and the competitive landscape is forcing everyone to stay on their toes.
Right, and the video format speculation, whatever it turns out to be, represents the next wave of capabilities that are coming. We've conquered text, we're getting really good at images and audio, and now video is the frontier.
And after video, what? Like, what's the next modality?
I mean, we're getting into some sci-fi territory, but I think the next thing is probably full multimodal integration, like systems that can seamlessly process and generate text, images, audio, and video all together and understand the relationships between them.
So, like, you could describe a scene and the AI would generate a video with appropriate audio and maybe even interactive elements all in one go.
Exactly. Or you could show it a video and have it generate a text summary, pull out keyframes as images, transcribe the audio, and identify the speakers all in a single API call.
That would be powerful. And honestly, we're not that far from it. Like, a lot of the pieces already exist.
Yeah, it's more about integration and making it efficient enough to be practical, but I think we'll get there.
And when we do, that's when AI starts to feel truly ambient, like it's just part of the environment, processing and understanding everything seamlessly.
Which, again, exciting, but also kind of concerning depending on how it's deployed.
Right. The same technology that could be used to create amazing accessibility tools could also be used for surveillance or manipulation.
It's the dual-use nature of the technology, and that's why I keep coming back to the importance of being thoughtful about how we build and deploy these systems.
Agreed. Okay, so I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about what these developments mean for different audiences.
Good idea. Let's break it down.
So if you're a developer building on these APIs, what should you be taking away from the GPT 5.6 news?
I think the main takeaway is that you need to be monitoring performance and costs closely, and you need to have a strategy for switching providers if needed. Don't get locked into one model or one provider to the point where you can't adapt.
And practically, what does that mean? Like, how do you build for that kind of flexibility?
A few things. 1. Use abstraction layers. Don't call the OpenAI API directly in your application code. Wrap it in your own interface so you can swap out the underlying provider without changing your application logic.
Makes sense.
2. Keep your prompts as generic as possible. Don't over-optimize for the quirks of a specific model. 3. Monitor your evals closely. Have a test suite that you can run against different models to quickly assess whether switching would be beneficial.
And presumably, you want to be following the news closely so you know when new models are released and can evaluate them quickly.
Exactly. Like if you're building a production system on these models, you should be aware of releases within hours, not days or weeks.
Okay, so that's for developers. What about for business leaders or product managers who are thinking about incorporating AI into their products?
I think the key insight is that AI capabilities are improving fast enough that you need to be thinking about what's going to be possible in 6 months or a year, not just what's possible today.
So, like, if you're planning a product roadmap, you should be assuming that things that are too expensive or too slow today might be practical soon.
Right, but at the same time, you can't bet your whole company on speculative future capabilities. You need to build with what's available now, but be prepared to take advantage of improvements as they come.
It's a balancing act.
It is, and I think the successful companies are going to be the ones that can move quickly. Like when GPT 5.6 came out with 60% better throughput, the companies that could evaluate it, switch over, and take advantage of that performance improvement within days are going to have an edge over the companies that take weeks or months to make that decision.
Organizational agility becomes a competitive advantage.
Exactly. And that's hard because it goes against a lot of traditional enterprise software practices where you want stability and predictability.
Right, like the old model was you'd choose a platform, commit to it for years, and optimize deeply for it.
But that doesn't work anymore when the platforms are changing every few months.
So companies have to adopt more of a startup mentality, even if they're large enterprises.
Yeah, which is easier said than done, but I think it's necessary in this environment.
Okay, and then for just regular users, people who aren't building AI products but are using them, what should they be taking away from all this?
I think the main thing is that the tools you're using are going to keep getting better, and probably pretty rapidly. Like if you're using ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, the capabilities you have access to in 6 months are going to be noticeably better than what you have today.
So it's worth periodically revisiting tasks that maybe didn't work well with AI a few months ago, because they might work well now.
Exactly. Like if you tried to use an AI for something 6 months ago and it wasn't good enough, it's worth trying again now.
And I think also users should be aware that the competitive dynamics we're talking about actually benefit them, because competition drives prices down and quality up.
Yeah, like the fact that developers are switching between providers based on performance is ultimately going to result in better products for end users.
Right, although it might also result in some instability, like features that work one day might change the next day because the underlying model changed.
That's true, but I think most apps are pretty good about smoothing that out for users.
Hopefully. All right, so let me ask you a bigger picture question. Do you think this pace of improvement is sustainable?
That's a great question. I mean, we've seen incredible progress over the past few years, and it does feel like it's accelerating, if anything.
But can that continue indefinitely?
I don't think so. I think we're going to hit limits eventually. Like, there are physical limits to how much compute we can throw at these problems. There are data limits in terms of how much human-generated data exists to train on. And there are probably theoretical limits to how much you can improve with current architectures.
So you think we'll see a slowdown at some point?
I think we'll see the rate of improvement slow down, yeah, but I don't think we're there yet. I think we still got a few years of rapid improvement ahead of us.
And then what? Like, once we hit those limits, does progress stop?
No, I think it shifts. Like, instead of these big jumps in capability, we might see more incremental improvements, more focus on efficiency and specialization, more work on making AI more reliable and interpretable, rather than just more capable.
That actually sounds pretty healthy, honestly.
I think so too. Like right now, we're in this land grab phase where everyone's trying to build the most capable models. But eventually, we'll shift to a phase where it's more about building the most useful or most reliable or most efficient models for specific use cases.
And that's when AI becomes truly integrated into everything, because it's not about having the flashiest demo. It's about having something that works reliably for a specific purpose.
Exactly. Like, I think in 5 or 10 years, we won't be talking about GPT-7 versus Claude 5 versus Gemini 4. We'll be talking about specialized models for healthcare or education or entertainment, and the models will be tailored for those domains.
That makes sense, although I bet there will still be competition at that level.
Oh, for sure. Competition isn't going away, but the nature of the competition will change.
All right, well, I think we've thoroughly explored both of our stories today, even though one of them is mostly speculation.
Hey, speculation is fun sometimes.
It is, as long as we're clear that that's what we're doing.
Absolutely. And look, the GPT 5.6 story is solid. We've got real numbers, we've got real implications, and it's a clear signal of where the market is heading.
Agreed. And the video format thing, whatever it turns out to be, is a reminder that there are still new frontiers opening up.
Yeah, and honestly, that's what makes this space so exciting. Like, we can talk about what's happening now, but there's also always this sense of what's coming next.
Always something new on the horizon.
Exactly. All right, so let me do a quick recap before we wrap up. Today, we talked about GPT 5.6 and the massive 60% throughput improvement that some companies are seeing, which is causing developers to actively switch providers in real time. This highlights the incredibly dynamic and competitive nature of the AI model market right now, and it has implications for how companies need to build and architect their AI systems.
And we also speculated about a cryptic reference to video formats, which we don't have a lot of details on yet, but which points to the fact that video understanding and generation is the next major frontier in AI capabilities.
Right, and the broader theme connecting these stories is that we're in this fast-moving phase where capabilities are improving rapidly, competition is fierce, and anyone building in this space needs to be prepared to adapt constantly.
And that's both exciting and challenging, depending on where you sit in the ecosystem.
It really is. All right, well, that's what we've got for you today. If you're enjoying Semper AI Digest, please take a moment to subscribe and share it with someone who'd appreciate it. We really appreciate you listening.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode.
See you then.